Ladies and gentlemen, good day everybody. It's time for Furries in Space. That's right, Furries in Space. So, on December 9th, in the upcoming days, we will be having a Furry in Space. So, for those of you who haven't heard, but you probably have at this point, there is a furry who will be going to space. Not a very well-known furry, kind of a little bit in the shadows there. They have a modest following of 2,500 on multiple platforms on Twitter, Twitch, and YouTube. Their name is MeepsKitten, and they are going to space. Yeah. So, on a video up there, a link up there for the video, MeepsKitten covers him going to space on the Blue Origin flight. The more well-known person, there's going to be 6 people on that flight. The more well-known person to most people is the daughter of Alan Shepard. So, and Alan Shepard being the first American to get to space through the Mercury project, or the Mercury program for NASA back in the 60s. Okay, so but this feline here will also be part of that on that flight. Now, how did a furry get on that flight? Well, he's one of the paying customers, along with his father, Lane. His father apparently works cybersecurity, or what we should say, he is basically on the operating board of many cybersecurity firms. And recently, those cybersecurity firms have gone way up in price. One of the big ones he was on the board on its original founding was called Zscaler. We do know we do have information about, when an insider trades on a stock, we do know when they bought in on something. I don't think he's part of Zscaler anymore. Recently, MeepsKitten's father, Lane, has moved on to basically run his own company, basically find another company. So I don't think he's on the board anymore. But when he was on this board back in 2018, he had bought $1,750,000 worth of shares, which you can see at the bottom here. Okay. If he were to have held that, he bought them at like $16 a share. Currently, they're trading at $355.92 a share. So if he had kept all those stocks that he had bought, his equity in that particular company would be $745,033,936.64, as you can see at the top right there. So that's if he held it to the time under which I had taken this recording and taken this information. So basically, he got a lot of money. MeepsKitten's father's got a lot of money. Take him out for if his daddy's rich. Okay, so his dad's got a lot of milk. Okay, so that's how he got onto that particular thing. Now, obviously, there's the idea of, the frustration, as it were, for a lot of people on social media about, him getting into space and not really appreciating. Now, I will note this: if you are into furries talking about space, MeepsKitten channel is not the one for you. You would probably want to go to Hiyu, Hiyu. That is the channel that you would find a furry who likes to talk about space and talk about the scientific things around space. MeepsKitten channel is more of a just sort of normal social furry fare. It's got like things like Omegle, reactions, right? Like he gets on Omegle in fursuit and people react. or you know, like doing activities in fursuit. You know, it's normal kind of standard furry fare. It's not dealing with space or showing any major interests in space or anything like that. So, in essence, it is things. But you know, he did have his video talking about it. In it, you know, he's obviously he knows the opportunity that's been given to him is a very privileged one, and he plans on bringing a furry paw up with him into the shuttle. He can't bring the fursuit head. That's already been established. It's a security thing, and it's too big of a bulky item. You bring like small little items that you want to bring up with you. He's going to bring a furry paw, and he's going to bring a pansexual flag because his sexual identity is pansexual. So basically, those are two of the things he's noted that he's bringing with him. Now, there were obviously when your daddy is that rich, right? There's going to be a lot of like hearsay and smuttering about the silver spoon that the kitten was given, but some people did come to the defense, and so before I go on, if you want to read the whole thing, I have an article in the description below about this whole situation, which is a read, so you can read it through it instead of having to listen to me on YouTube. Basically, you have here, you know, Drenth, this, you know, Drenth folk here, person, basically coming sort of to defense on it. So he goes, "Today I heard a furry is going to outer space, and that's pretty cool. Then I heard people were making fun of him for having rich parents, and that's not cool. Can't you just be happy for someone doing something cool? I saw a complaint that he's not even going to do anything, so why call him an astronaut? Let me remind you, Mercury astronauts were not even supposed to touch anything on their rockets, unless told to. At one point, NASA seriously debated sedating Mercury astronauts so they wouldn't get cute and start touching the controls. They were there to sit in their chairs and ride the rocket. Chuck Yeager called them spam in a can." Now, the reason I highlighted spam in a can is because Drenth is here saying that, you know, the word astronaut is, you know, doesn't necessarily mean it's that a person's skilled or anything like that. It just basically means that they're on a ship in space, right? It doesn't mean that they're scientifically skilled or scientifically, you know, elite or anything like that. And though in, you know, sort of American lore or in sort of like folklore, astronauts are seen as like, you know, rocket scientists, right? They're and also physically fit because they're not going to let just some random schmuck go up there, right? So they're seen as sort of this elite, right? And so when, you know, you're talking about MeepsKitten going up there, just some, you know, random furry and his, you know, multi-millionaire / billionaire father, you know, it sort of like puts a damper on that sort of mysticism about what an astronaut could be. And in an ironic sense, right, this is sort of what these private companies who are trying to do this whole space race thing, whether it be the Virgin, whether it be the Virgin Company, or whether it be, you know, Amazon, or whether it be, or, you know, Bezos, or whether it be Elon Musk, they want to kind of move away from that mysticism, right? That space is only for these elite few people, and it can be for everybody. And that's sort of something they've got to break, right? In a way. But I will note this. The interesting thing here on this quote, on this tweet, is as I was doing lateral reading into this quote, so lateral reading is basically researching something and not just taking someone's word for it. That's an important thing to do when you're looking for information and facts, is not just taking a person's word for it. Like taking a word for it, that Chuck Yeager basically called them spam in a can, meaning that these astronauts were basically just people in a rocket. Is there a reason or a motive for him saying that? Apparently there was. if you look at the really, really fine print at the bottom of the screen here. Unfortunately, I copied this from the wiki page, and doesn't translate too well in screenshots sometimes. So basically, the thing says, it was further stipulated that candidates should be between 25 and 40 years old, and that candidates right here are for the Mercury project, which is what Dreth was talking about, right? The Mercury project. This is the one that Alan Shepard was on, as I had mentioned prior. No taller than 5 feet 11 inches, and well, that would disqualify me. Oh man, damn me being tall. I guess short people do have a reason to live. Yeah, we want your short people. Anyways, and hold a college degree in a STEM subject: scientific, technology, engineering, mathematics. For those who don't know what that means. The college degree requirement excluded USAF's X-1 pilot, then Lieutenant Colonel, later would become Brigadier General, Chuck Yeager, the first person to exceed the speed of sound. He later became a critic of the project, ridiculing the civilian space program, labeling astronauts as spam in a can. So the irony, the ultimate irony here based on this lateral reading, is that while Dreth used this defense of spam in a can to say that furries were being mean by calling MeepsKitten a space tourist and or not an astronaut, etc., he's using Chuck Yeager's calling of astronauts spam in a can because he couldn't go because he didn't qualify because he didn't have a STEM college degree. So, in essence, he's saying, hey, furries, you can't have sour grapes. This guy who had sour grapes is the proof that you can't have sour grapes. So, the interesting thing about humanity is that jealousy and anger and frustration about being left out, or FOMO, fear of missing out, on a particular aspect is universal. And it's unending. It is unaging. It is like graphite. It's just going to be there. I don't know, I'm not a geologist, I don't know if that's it. But it's like cave paintings. It's always going to be there. Okay? Like, you can't. They last forever. Human envy of others is going to last forever. There are some people like Hayu. I would actually say, like, I really feel bad for the guy. It's like, yeah, like that. Like Hayu would definitely be like super jealous about this opportunity that this guy is getting, and hopefully he comes back with some good stories, and hopefully he comes back and shares his stories, because like. It would be, to me, it feel more of a waste to have somebody go up there and just not say anything because they're too worried about what the internet will think. I would hope that they would continue to share their story about their experience, that on the December 9th Blue Origin flight, rather than like not saying anything about it, because that would be an absolute waste. So that being said, what's the next thing here? There was one of the best responses of this whole thing, also, which I'll share, is actually a FurryStoke here, Sid Stoke. Apparently, Sid Stoke here works in the aerospace industry, and he made a very good read about his perspective of the whole situation. So. Obviously Twitter had its issues where there were a few people going like, they're not really an astronaut, they're interstellar passenger, or there's the passenger, and people like, oh, well, he has a rich daddy, and blah blah blah. Being somewhat toxic, being frustrated about it because they're obviously having to deal with their own situations and barely making it by, and being frustrated by the fact that some random fur just gets to go up into space while they're trying to get work through their student loans, work through their mortgages, and all this stuff. And Sid Stoke comes here and says like he's This person is of modest means and a background of modest means, but now he works in the aerospace industry, right? He was given an opportunity, and he talks about how his parents helped foster that opportunity for him, even though they were basically giving it all they had just to get him that opportunity. And it's a very touching story. And it's actually probably one of the best stories I've seen come out of this whole thing. Even better presented than MeepsKitten's story, honestly. I think MeepsKitten's was a little nervous and like his video kind of aloofed a little bit. This one is very solidly written. This is why the written word's better than the spoken word a lot of times, in my opinion. Because the written word, it's like, if you mess up, you can go back. And by the way, the written word's a lot better than the spoken word. You don't know why? Because most of the professionals who do the spoken word are using a teleprompter. I am not, which is why it's like, why do you seem not as professional as many other people? It's because I'm improving, okay? I'm basing these things upon the pictures and putting them in order and then kind of remembering the things in order. I'm giving you a little behind the scenes here. But some people enjoy listening to the spoken word. Other people like reading. In the words of George Carlin, he saw himself as a writer who performed his own material, right? So that's sort of what I do here. So this guy wrote down a nice story about him getting into the aerospace field and basically how the people in the aerospace field view the wealthy people trying to, pay for their own space ventures and having rocketeering and sort of those kind of things move to the private sector. I will note this. I think that this was sort of planned this way, in essence. And one of the big reasons is because during the space race, and it's sort of a side effect of the space race, because the space race, you had governments kind of trying to get up there and try to prove that they could get to the moon first, right? As soon as they got to the moon, it's like, okay, race is over, let's reset and let's not do anything, right? Or let's just like get satellites and start like using space technology in order to kind of do a sort of a CIA spying Kessler syndrome where we have all these things around our planet pointing inwards and looking at our things. And then a president kind of making a tweet that like kind of showed that we had too much of that technology, more than we were willing to admit. But the president tweeted what he was going to tweet, and now the technology people in space are like, we spent so much money on trying to make a spy satellite that had such high res, and now they're going to be able to, whatever. Anyways, thanks, Mr. President. That was the former president, by the way. That was that picture of that facility, right? So basically, like we've been using our technology sort of, and the government's been focusing on the war applications of the technology rather than focusing on the exploration side. So, the private enterprises are getting impatient. Like the young kids who watch things like Star Trek, right? Who watch that, what would be considered space race propaganda, because that's what Star Trek was, in essence. I'm sure the government subsidized it and hey, look at this opportunity we have if we get to space. This is why the space program is important to fund. It's not a military-industrial complex thing to get more power in space. No, it's we want to explore the universe, right? And so, because government's going to government. But in essence, it's basically, young kids watch that show, and then they grow up, and then they become, and very, very few of them, but some of them, become billionaire CEOs. And those billionaire CEOs are like, where is the space that we were promised? Where is this exploration that we were promised? Where is this wonder, this thing that we were promised by our government in the 60s? Where is this, right? And so they're trying to step in and deal with this rocket technology and the things like that with the amount of money that they had made, right? And a lot of folks on the planet are like, well, there's a lot of folks that need help here. There's a lot of folks that need, need support and need help. And it sucks that those expenditures are going towards rocket technology as opposed to going towards those kind of things. And that's a fair enough argument, and it's a fair enough problem. It's the thing about it is it's also a logistics problem. The thing is people think money fixes all problems. It doesn't. You have to have money to get logistics, to have people motivated to go and do things so that they can bring in the food or bring in the things and stuff like that, or repair the houses and maintain the shelters and things like that. It's a complicated situation, which is why it's run by many people with things like that. It's one of those things that it's, if somebody has a passion for something and somebody has a passion product, don't worry, the government's going to get their money, okay? They're going to have to buy materials, and they're going to have to pay taxes on those materials. Taxes are going to come out of things. In fact, taxes usually come out of logistical activity, right? So Uncle Sam will get his money. Don't worry, though. But the problem is, Uncle Sam is a stingy guy, and he probably won't give you any part of it for your college loans. Sorry. It's like here's the thing. I've already paid off my student loans because it was one of the debts that I focused on, right? When I'm focusing down my debt, it's like, okay, the student loans I can't declare bankruptcy on, and they're at 6%, and that's the highest percentage one I got, so I'm going to focus that down. And it's like, well, you should wait because the government's going to pay it off. It's like the odds are not in the favor, and I paid it off before the government decided to pay it off for me. Because sometimes you can't wait around on the government, right? And I think that's sort of the angle that some of these privatized people are going for. You can't wait on the government to want to explore space, because the government's only worried about their power. And so they're going to use space technology to just look inwards instead of look outwards. Because if they look outwards, they might see that they're not the most powerful thing in the universe, and it will scare the hell out of them. Maybe, right? So, but that's not what he said in his article. That's sort of my juxtaposition, I guess. What he was mostly saying, his is very good feel-good thing on it. Basically saying, since private enterprise is using space as a means of trying to explore and create new rockets, that the governmental can use more utilitarian things such as GPS, helping, map out things and do just normal, citizen utilitarian work rather than doing things that are not of value or things that might be dubiously of value, right? Because I'm sure in the 60s that there was a lot of people going, oh man, you're going to the moon? What's on the moon? That ain't gonna help me, man. It's the same rhythm, same song, different decade, right? You're gonna have people who are frustrated because the money that's going towards going to space or doing space operations isn't being used on the planet, and things have repeating cycles. There's rhymes in history, right? As I kind of noted here with the whole trying to not call an astronaut, right? Because here's the thing: it's Chuck Yeager would not have called those astronauts spam in a can if he were on that Mercury flight, and you know that, right? If he were on that flight, it's oh, you still gonna call them spam in a can? Oh no, they're astronauts, right? So same thing with oh, it's a space tourist until you were the space tourist. One of the things that MeepsKitten did point out is that the Blue Origin's website, talking about the flight, they did have an article, which is in my article, there's a link in the article to that article, did call all six of them, they did call all six of them astronauts. So, it wasn't him who called himself an astronaut, it was Blue Origin, who they paid, allegedly $250,000 a ticket, that called him an astronaut. So take it up with them, man. Like, but in essence, it's like, you know, people are gonna, you know, use the names and things like that, and language is sort of weird like that. I think that as you know, if space tourism continues to be a industry, you're probably going to see individuals who take those kind of flights be called space tourists or interstellar passengers rather than astronauts. And the people who are called astronauts are the people who basically are the ones who, you know, board that thing as sort of the professional person who basically takes control of things if things go wrong. So if they have a person who is supposed to handle the computers should something go wrong with like the programs or deal with exceptional situations, like the people who are trained to deal with like the aircraft, they're probably going to be called the astronauts. It's sort of like a pilot, right? Sort of like a pilot versus a passenger of an airplane. But as I said in my article, if you see, language is going to do that thing where it expands and then sort of contracts. So basically, as if interstellar like community starts to increase, you're going to see people use those terms, right, to be more specific about what a person's role is on a spaceship, right? Are they an interstellar passenger? Are they a part of the crew? So basically, they would be like the astronauts on part of the crew. Where, as I noticed, a passenger / crew, right? That eventually, if space becomes a thing where we are in space and we are doing space things, you know, on a regular basis, and it just becomes a normal thing like driving down the road, right? Or taking a flight, right? If it becomes an average everyday thing where people are just in space and moving around, you're probably going to see, you know, interstellar passenger or space tourists just basically be whittled down to passenger, and astronaut and all those things just be kind of whittled down to crew, right? A pilot or a crew. You know, it's just going to be basically the, you know, the words are going to whittle down, right? Sort of like how Star Trek does the whole like, what they call it, like a Navy. Like they have the whole Navy kind of set up. Like basically they use the same language as the Navy does with captain, first officer, you know, things like that. Like you'll see that the sort of the neologisms will kind of whittle their way back down to something that is more ingrained and more familiar. But anyways, I rambled about space and words anyway. Good luck out there to MeepsKitten. I hope that your journey is a safe one, and that you come back safe, and that you have a story to tell about it, and you have some nice pictures and nice photos to share. It'd be great to hear and see a follow up on that. Don't let the internet get you down. You're given an opportunity, and you're taking that opportunity, and hopefully make the best out of that opportunity. Because like all of us don't have that opportunity, right? So you need to take advantage of it. You need to take advantage of that opportunity and live it. And hopefully one day as we progress, then that opportunity will be afforded to more people down the line. And that's always the hope, right? Is that, you know, things that are rare and exceptional become the norm as we improve our ability in logistics and technology and our capabilities. Anyways, thank you very much for watching. Kick that like, kick the subscribe button, kick a comment in the comment section. How do you like space? Do you want to go to space? Space!